Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 244. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Saturday, November the 20th, from the 21st floor of the Doubletree Hotel in Little Italy, San Diego, California. That's right, we're doing a remote broadcast because this week I did something I haven't done in years and years and years, probably at least two years. And that was I traveled for a whole week, and I traveled for a whole week internationally. Now, internationally was not to an exotic location. It was not Singapore or the Philippines or China or Europe. It was Tijuana. But I guess that still qualifies as international travel, right? Even though it's just right across the border from San Diego. But what I'm going to touch on in this podcast, several things, a few international stories that are in the news that I found of interest, and I think you will too. I posted them onto my James Strong Show Facebook page earlier in the week. So if you read them, you'll know that I'm now going to talk about them. We're going to talk about the travel to the west coast of the U.S. and down into Tijuana, and how the pandemic has in some ways changed and in some ways not changed the way business and government has basically looked at travel during the pandemic. And kind of depends on where you are. And in the last part, I'm going to have a special guest, and the special guest will be the trophy wife. She actually joined me at the end of this business trip so we could spend a long weekend here in San Diego. So if you'll bear with just me for the first part of the podcast, the trophy wife will join me for the second part, and she'll be able to share her insights of what's changed in the city of San Diego, America's finest city, in the last 2 years or so since we've been here. First off, let's go ahead and talk about a few stories that are in the news that I found very interesting. Number one, Dateline Peru. Also, before I start this, if you hear some background noises, that's because I'm basically on the balcony of the 21st floor overlooking America's finest city. There's some construction projects going on, the hustle and bustle of the city down below me, off to the side. So if you hear some background noise, that's what that's all about. But I thought it would make a good podcast if we did it basically outside in the middle of the hustling, bustling city. So we'll see how this works out. Okay, Dateline Peru. You saw a story that I featured on my Facebook page about a giant three-fingered hand that was found in Peru. It's part of what they call the Nazca mummies. And these beings, creatures, whatever you want to call them, they have three fingers. And their DNA has been checked against other known three-fingered beings, creatures, and they don't match any of it. But we don't know if they're human or not. And apparently these tests later this year or early next year are going to confirm if, in fact, these Nazca mummies are human. But if they are, their hands are huge. They only have three fingers. And if you scale the size of their hands to the size of the being, these guys would be about 3 meters tall. That's about 9 feet to those of you in the United States who don't do the metric system. So whatever these beings are, if their hands are scaled to ours, they're 9 feet tall. So stay tuned. I think we're going to find out more about this in the near future. Number 2 story, Dateline China. Of all the Chinese tennis players, there's only been one top-ranked Chinese tennis player ever in the history of professional tennis. And her name is Peng Shuai. And she was actually ranked number 1 some years ago in the doubles competition. Okay, so she's a good tennis player. China's best. And she had some controversy earlier this year, whereas she accused a former vice premier of sexual abuse. And they asked her to recant this. She refused because she says, I'm not going to recant this because this is what happened, and this man needs to be held accountable for his actions. Oh, Ms. Peng has all of a sudden disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to her. Nobody knows where she went. Nobody knows where she is. And if you search social media in China for Peng Shuai, it comes up no results found. Now, there was a social media post supposedly made by her saying, hey, look, everything's good. I'm fine. There's nothing going on here. But those of you who are fans of the tennis star say, you know what, she did never talk like this. This is not something she posted. This is something the government just put up. And I mention this because it's interesting, because I am so anti-President Xi, China. I'm as negative as I can be because the guy is just a brutal dictator. He's Mao Zedong reanimated. He's a dictator. He's totalitarian. The reason he stays in power is because he's killed or imprisoned all of his adversaries. And he's now going to be made basically president for life, which is against the Chinese constitution. But nobody's opposing him because they don't want to die or be thrown in jail. And Peng accused one of his cronies of sexual misconduct. And now she's gone. That, my friends, is the China that we deal with now. Will this change? I have to think so. I hope so. I think the Chinese people will only put up with this for so long. I hope they only put up with it for so long and realize what a horrible human being President Xi is. Number three, I should say, Dateline Germany. Germany has an interesting history when it comes to the Jews. And the story has to do with there's only a handful of Jews left in Germany, about 100,000. The rest were killed during World War II, or they emigrated and didn't come back. But the Jewish population of Germany is like 0.02%, something like that. And basically they teach the Holocaust in Germany. But they teach the Holocaust, but most people's opinion of the Jews, all they know about the Jews, I should say, is a bunch of them were killed during the Holocaust. So a Jewish organization in Germany has come up with a program called Meet a Jew. And basically what this is these two ladies meet with people from Germany, common German people, clubs, meetings, groups, many of which have never met a Jew in their life. And they basically explain to them what they are, what they aren't, what they believe, what they don't believe. And if you ever saw the movie Borat, where Jews are just seen as horned creatures who can cast a spell upon you, the movie was hilarious. It was funny, and it took it to another limit, or another dimension, I should say, almost. But that's kind of what these folks are doing. Hey, Jews aren't all Holocaust victims. We don't have horns. We don't cast spells. We're not trying to take over your banking system. Trying to educate the German people with this program called Meet a Jew. Interesting things going on in Germany. The meat of the podcast today, international travel and vacation. It's been 2 years since I've traveled internationally. It's been 2 years since I've been to the West Coast. It's been 2 years since I've been anywhere outside of the Midwest, basically, or near South. But this trip was a big one. I flew into Phoenix. Then I flew from St. Louis to Phoenix, then Phoenix to LAX. Then I drove and did business in Los Angeles, went from Los Angeles to San Diego, and then from San Diego to Tijuana to do business there. And it's been a good trip. It's been, I would say, mind-opening perhaps. The pandemic has certainly changed the way we fly, the way we travel, the way we do business. But it depends on where you are as to how big the change has been. For example, the airline travel itself. From Phoenix to Los Angeles, I mean, it was fine. Airport wasn't busy in St. Louis, but then I did get there at 5 a.m. So you're not going to expect a lot of travelers at 5 a.m. The planes were full, packed actually, with few, if any, seats. My airfare from St. Louis to Phoenix was $139. My airfare from Phoenix to LA, $49. Actually, $48.98. We fly home on Monday from San Diego to St. Louis. That flight was reasonably priced too. We'll see how crowded that is. But the airline prices are very reasonable. Car rentals, however, not so much. Car rentals, about $100 a day, no matter what you rent or where you rent it from. At the airports, there were no shortages of cars per se. Here in San Diego, if you just wanted to rent a car for the day, however, there were none available. I asked everybody, they said, sorry, we're sold out for the weekend. Doesn't matter because we didn't need a car. We're walking everywhere we need to, staying here in Little Italy. But about $100 a day. I usually rent a full-size car, but it doesn't matter. Full-size car versus an economy car, it's almost a rounding error. It's more like $2 or $3 a day difference as to what you rent. I rented a minivan in Phoenix because they just gave it to me because it was a free upgrade. And I'm a big fan of those Dodge minivans. They're very comfortable. Got 30 miles a gallon in that vehicle. In LA, San Diego, I rented a Nissan Altima. Very nice car. It's got 43 miles to the gallon with that car. It's a good thing because gas prices in the West are very expensive. St. Louis. What did I pay for gasoline in St. Louis last week? $2.92 for regular. Phoenix, $3.57 is what I paid. In San Diego, most places, Los Angeles, same way, $5 a gallon or higher. There is one place here in San Diego, in Point Loma, actually, not too far from the airport where I dropped the car. It's at a Ralph's, which is a grocery store chain that also has gasoline, $4.62. That's the cheapest I've seen it anywhere. Hotels, they're also reasonable. Anywhere from $120 a night to $160 a night is what I've been paying. And I like to stay in Hilton properties, Hampton Inns, Hilton Garden Inns, DoubleTrees. And again, $120 to $160 a night. So while the prices haven't really gone up, services have been cut back. In some cases, severely cut back. The Hampton Inn, one of the things I love about the Hampton Inn, 24-hour coffee. They don't have that anymore, only at breakfast time. At the DoubleTree and the Hilton Garden Inn, there's no coffee period until breakfast time. And breakfast doesn't start till 6:30 at these restaurants. I generally get up at 4:30 to 5. And I have to go to Starbucks to get my coffee because they don't serve coffee in the hotel before breakfast. So I found that interesting. No room service during your stay, but that's something they started with the pandemic, and I think they're just going to keep from now on. Used to be if you're staying for a couple of days, they'll tidy up your room, that type of thing. They don't do that anymore. And I don't have a problem with that, except for here's where my problem lies. They don't fix up your room for your convenience. For your convenience, we will let you live in filth. Don't word it as for your convenience, please. It's, look, we're cutting back. We're trying to save money, so we're not going to tidy up your room during the day while you're staying here. I get that, but don't say we're doing it for your convenience. It's a little disingenuous, in my opinion. A lot more places charge for parking now, and they've taken that model from the airlines.